Good hello and good morning. Welcome to On Your Skin and welcome back to the spinning gears thingy that I was doing the other day. Gonna try and completely finish it off. Get as close as possible. I was very close last time. I'm gonna pick up exactly where I left off. Connecting some of the lines and things together. But with, I feel like there likely will be a bit of extra time at the end. So I might go into some compositing and effects and things like that. That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes and how that turns out. So I'm just trying to get my bearings. Where was I up to last time? Oh yes, okay, so just sort of chipping away through, still just doing horizontal lines connecting all of these gears together. So yeah, probably not a whole lot to talk about as I do that. Just be sort of chipping away at it for myself. So we'll have a conversation while that happens, I suppose. But for those watching later, there isn't anybody here in the chat yet, so I don't really have a whole lot to say. So I'll probably be a bit more of a chilled one, I suppose, until this starts to get edited together at the end and make a bit more of a cohesive tutorial out of it. Should still be okay. I'm still having fun with it. This, I suppose, is the main thing. Oh dear. I probably should start off with something a little bit more interesting to do, so I have something to talk about until a conversation begins. But I'm feeling so relaxed that all I want to do is just therapeutically draw horizontal lines on things. I'm doing it by holding shift with the line tool. If you hadn't realized that. I've got the blue lines on. You may or may not have seen these before, actually. It's a bit of a hidden feature in Toon. It's called stroke mode. By pressing K on the keyboard, all the blue lines appear, and then you can sort of see and deconstruct how something is put together, yeah? It's really good when using stroke-based tools, things like the pencil, the line tool, rectangle, circle, etc. Because its main piece of construction goes down the middle of it, right? Rather than around the edges like the brush. So use a brush like that. See how it kind of goes around the edges? But the pencil, it goes down the middle. There's a lot more you can sort of do with the stroke-based ones, but they are trickier to manage. Because what you're physically seeing is different to how it is physically constructed, right? So even though it may look as if two lines are touching, that doesn't mean they actually are. They're probably not touching. And in this instance, they're not. Yellow boxes on the end of strokes mean it's not connected with something else. Whereas these bluer, darker ones mean an intersection is happening. So if I was just to use a standard paint bucket on the ones that aren't fully connected with like no gap closer, it won't work. I'll have to have a gap closer turned on to a certain degree, or have a gap closing turned on in my actual drawing itself. So there's a switch down here in tool properties for the line tool. If I stop here, it may or may not. Yeah, there we go. See, that connected together, even though the black line ended early, but it sort of continued the blue one a little bit beyond for me, just to connect it together. And in a shape as geometric as this one, I think that's going to be quite helpful. I often have it turned off for characters and things, because small intricacies and gaps and stuff like that, I can create more holes than you probably wanted to. But how is everybody doing this morning? Have you been making any interesting animations? Or even just a general update? course, I encourage leaving comments as well if you're someone watching this later. I know a lot of people, like I'm certainly one of them as well, that just don't really have a habit of leaving comments on YouTube videos, but I do tend to read all of them, and if there's anything you're wanting to know about, or if there's anything that you're struggling with in regards to learning the software or animation, whatever, then, you know, throw your voice out, and maybe I try to help where I can. And what's happening more and more, which is quite exciting, is other people sort of jumping in with their opinion as well. It's great to... It's really fun having this sort of self-concocted learning tool. Like if I'm personally struggling with something, I can throw a thought out there, and usually someone has an answer, which is great. Good morning, Penguin Potential. How are you? How has your week been? It's a bit of a time-consuming process, but it's quite fun, this one. I'm really quite enjoying it. It's nice to be at a stage in a small project like this where I don't really need to, I suppose, think a whole lot. Cleaning up is fun. Doing good. Working in Cinema 4D with some mesh modeling, rigging, and skinning. That sounds really cool. What's your favorite part of 3D? Because there are so many different parts to it, like modeling, rigging, skinning. Trying to master all of those things, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades, really. And I know a lot of people end up gravitating towards one particular element more than another. Is there something else that or something in particular that you gravitate towards? What am I making today? I'm doing a spinning gear. So this is, sorry, I probably should have said at the beginning. This is continuing on from like a live tutorial I was doing at the end of last week, which is like a spinning gear effect. So we got as far as sort of squashing and rotating the thing and tracing over it. And now these horizontal lines are going in. I'm going through frame by frame and just placing it in, focusing on one stroke at a time, and you can see the 3D effect very clearly starting to come into play. It's quite a powerful and satisfying effect. I'm quite fond of it. It's going to be quite fun at the end of this process to go through with the cutter tool, trim away all the parts that we don't need, and we'll be left with a very convincing 3D-ish look. We'll be able to do quite a few different things with it that I haven't decided yet. We'll see. We'll see. In 3D, I like the head rotation. Saves a lot of time worrying about which angle in 2D. I started in 2D with Flash and moved to After Effects in 2D, which has 3D heads, and now trying to go full 3D. Aha, so you're still fairly new to it then. Sounds like you're enjoying it though, which is good. But I do agree, I really like using 3D for things. I've never really used it for head rotation. I've seen it done. But I do really like the idea of kind of doing a quick, gross 3D mock-up and using it as reference to sort of take perspective and a few other things out of the equation. Being able to clearly see how something will rotate. Also, that's pretty much as far as my knowledge in 3D goes. But that's good. It means it still has a use in a workflow without having to know about texturing and UV unwrapping and things like that. Just being able to model is enough. There's something I can do with it. Head animation is important to me. Faces and subtle head tilts to add expression. Now that's very tricky to do in 3D, isn't it? Because you gotta... Like, rigging a face is a really involved process. You can't just draw it. That's why I say that doing probably a head build, rotating it around to different angles and just using it as reference, then, you know, like tracing over it and still hand drawing all your expressions, that would be... Like, that's something you could do. But I'm having a feeling you don't quite do that. So what has the journey of learning all of the elements of 3D been like? Oops. What have I done? I use a 2D face from my old After Effects rigs. I use it as a texture for my 3D head. That's really neat. I wouldn't mind seeing one. If you have it uploaded anywhere, feel free to link it. We'll have a look. Hello, Antrek03. How are you? I think 3D is where I feel most at home. It's kind of like trying to figure out if you're right or left-brained. Yeah, I guess you're probably right. They have different mindsets. I can definitely understand why some people would gravitate towards one more than the other. The left or right brain thing is an interesting conversation though. Trying to figure out if you are one or the other, or even if one or the other is even a thing. I guess it's more of a scale. May gravitate towards one mindset more than another. Here's one I did about 2 months ago. I'm working on redoing the rig currently. Let's have a look. When you have the time. Do I know the way? No. Teach me the way. What is the way? Now I know that you broke the link that you pasted, but even upon fixing it, I seem to be struggling getting it working. In what way did you break it? What do I need to change here? Ah, wait. Hang on. No, I know what I did. Sorry, I made a mistake. One second. I was looking at the wrong part of it. There we go. Wait, so this is a... Oh, it is 3D. Sorry, as it's loading in, it suddenly got... It was playing like every third frame, which was enough to convince me that it was 2D. Sorry, here you go. This is the thing that penguin potential's showing off. There's a penguin in it. Let's go figure. What I find really cool about this sort of coloring is that if you were to play it on 2s or 3s, you'd probably have quite a few people convinced that it's still hand-drawn. The only thing that really gives it away to being 3D is that it's so smooth. Being in singles, you know, why would somebody draw this smoothly, you know? That's very cool. I'm gravitating more and more towards lineless stuff. I was never really into lineless stuff when I was younger, but it's getting me quite excited now. Probably more from a production reason rather than an aesthetic reason for some reason. For some reason. I feel like it's a little bit more flexible, especially when it comes to things like character rigging. Making certain lines overlap with one another in a believable way is pretty tricky. And when you don't have to worry about outlines, you can skip a lot of stuff. Yeah, when does this line become relevant? Pretty early. The curviness and the sticky outiness of some of these gears is throwing me a bit. Wait, does that go there? Or? Yes. Yes, it does go there. Do you know the way I could have sworn it was here? What do you mean, Henry 2? It's too early for your mind games. I think I saw the way over there, but he just looks like a Knuckles. What are you... You're all messing with my mind, aren't you? Enough of this. Okay, there's a tricky bit coming up. This is going to be very exciting. You don't get things like this on other streams. You ready? Where does the line go on this one? Oh my goodness. That was insane. So much adrenaline. There we go. I hope that blew your minds. Oh, it's a new meme. Don't worry about it. I guess it is pretty new. Sorry, I can't play along with all the jokes. The lineless, shadeless style I used for that animation was when I used a very crude rig. The shading would have revealed all the seams. I'm working on a seamless rig currently. Yes, that's what I mean. Like, there's a larger margin of error with lineless stuff that I'm quite enjoying. I feel like I might be able to push things a little bit further. Depends on what you're doing, of course. I mean, this, for example, clearly better with lines. I mean, I could delete them afterwards, but would have been very difficult to put together without being able to trace outlines like this. Getting pretty close to the end of this process, though. I'll have a closer look after this one. There we go. So how's that flowing? Yeah, it's coming together. Probably still only about halfway though, and I think I've actually missed one or two. This one at the top. Oh no, it's there. It's there. Okay. Carrying on. Started watching your videos when Jazza plugged you last year. Always interested in how people use their other programs to achieve the same quality of work. Thanks, man. It's certainly been a long time since then. I think Jazza was probably at about 600,000 at the time. A little over 2 million now. It's crazy. I know it takes a lot of effort, but I always enjoyed watching your Read Between the Frames series, and would like to know if you'll make the next when you'll make the next episode. I'm actually really considering doing a Read Between the Frames during one of these live streams. I feel like one of the most exciting periods of putting one of those episodes together is just like the initial watch through, which like none of it is recorded. Like that's just usually me on my own getting really excited over a thing and deciding what to do and to unpack it. So late last week it sort of crossed my mind, why don't I just do it with everybody here and then we can sort of react to it together and stuff like that. So I'm yet to really discuss it properly with you all, but I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. I think it would be good to try at least once or twice to see how it goes. And if it turns out to be rubbish, I'll go back to editing them, I suppose. But it means there'll be, like, the frequency of them would shift a lot. Last year, they were probably like once a month. This year, if they were edited Read Between the Frames, it would be even less. I'd probably realistically only do like 2 or 3 in the whole year, which would be pretty lame. But if doing them live actually worked, then they could realistically be nearly every week, which would be awesome. They'd still take a little bit more preparation than, say, something like today's one, where I'm just sitting down and drawing some gears and chilling out. Like it'll be like an event. I'll have to make sure I'm still prepared and have a rough idea on what to talk about, and there'll be more audience participation and junk like that. But I'd also have to be more careful about what I choose to show, because, you know, just sitting down and just watching a cartoon with an audience is a big no-no, copyright-wise. So I probably wouldn't even be able to play the clip in full. I'd just focus on the frame-by-frame elements, scrubbing back and forth. So at first, I think I'd choose something that I'm pretty confident a lot of people would have seen. And we sort of just tear it apart. See what we think. Okay. Gear spin is done. Good thing I only had to do one transition and not a full rotation, eh? But now comes the fun part. Trimming away all the gaps. Looking forward to this. So this is the overlappy parts, but also things like that. So I might do whole frames at a time here. Just so I can see it from a bird's eye view and make sure it's all clean. Should be pretty easy to make clean. There we go. Yeah, so I have to have a look at my little list again, schedule of things that I intend to do. But I think I really wanted to try out a live read between the frames either late this week or early next week. So I will hopefully remember to give a bit of a heads up when that's due to happen, so anyone who wants to be there for it can try to be there. Twitter's the best way to keep track of those updates. I'll see how it goes, huh? I hope it goes well, because there's so many read between the frames that I've really wanted to do that I admittedly just will never get the time for. But it means all of those things can just happen, which would be wonderful. Do you think modeling a gear in 3D would actually save time for something like this, or is this to challenge yourself? To actually do it in 3D probably would be quicker. There are benefits to having it flat. You know, it's just like a layer or whatever. The reason why I'm doing it is that it demonstrates a bunch of different techniques that exist within Toon Boom's interface, which I think are important to figure out at some point. So basically when I'm done with it, probably over the weekend, no, not this weekend, but at some point, I intend to take today's and the other day's one, edit it together into something a bit more proper. And I guess at that point you'll see it in more of the form where, hey, here's a bunch of just different useful features that Toon Boom is capable of. And here they are being used in practice, in a thing. It's something that will come together relatively quickly and look pretty cool. And, you know, I know that watching it from the viewer's standpoint, it seems like this is taking a little while, but an effects like this in real life are only taking a couple of hours. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Considering that it is completely hand-drawn. Well, hand-drawn with tricks. What is my Twitter? That's a good question. It should be on the channel somewhere. Am I allowed to post links? Does it give leeway because I'm the host? I hope so. Let me try it. If not, you can do the whole unbreaking the link again. Let's find out. I think it let me. Give that a crack. Oh, you found it already. What is my favorite animated movie? Probably Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, because it's 3D, but it moves like it was drawn, if that makes sense. It was the first thing that I'd seen that was able to do squash and stretch properly, and just, it felt like a cartoon. I thought that was very, very, very cool and very impressive. Being able to make rigs do something like that is nuts. And then especially in the second one, they have this like little strawberry character. And when its face contorts, it has like these seeds, you know, the seeds that a strawberry has. And they have to contort and move around the face as well. And that would have been insane to get working. that when they were testing it, they must have broken in so many different ways. So I think they achieved something pretty incredible with those films. Also, as far as like a movie and its sequel is concerned, I like how different they are. It's not retreading the same territory. They're like two different genres. Like the second one's like an adventure movie. It's nuts. Dean's Toon says, really loving the streams. Thank you. That does mean a lot. I do, of course, worry about them being, you know, not very high energy or planned out. There's a lot of, like, if I start doing them more regularly, which I certainly intend to, there's going to be quite a range in flavor, I suppose. Some that will be a bit more event-based, and there'll be something pretty well planned out that we can sort of go through together, which will be quite exciting. Others which are a bit more relaxed, like today's one, where I'm just sort of chipping away at something that doesn't require a lot of thought, and there probably may be quite a lot more silence than another one where I'm talking a lot. And then others where it may even just simply be a conversation and we're all interacting. I'd like to have some game-based ones as well. As in not like video game-based, but ones like where we're sort of like competing in an art challenge together. I think that would be quite fun. I've got a number of different things planned out, and I think I'll try all of them at least once or twice to see how they go. This is one of them. How will just chipping away at a small project, how will that go? I don't know. One way to find out. Okay, I think I'm pretty much there. Can't see any kinks. Excellent. Okay, that's working. What I should have done right at the start is emboss this middle bit. So I think I'm going to do that. Which might be tricky because of the interior of the gear. Screw it, let's do it anyway. So all I should need to do there is copy that, shift it a little bit to the right. Do the same thing with this one. Shift it about the same amount to the right. Another thing I might do here is take these two shapes, cut and paste them onto a blank layer. Turn the light table on so I can see everything very clearly. connect it with a horizontal line like so. And with the eraser, I'm gonna trim away the bit to the left that I don't need. Expand its exposure across the whole animation, and then if I merge the layers, that should work. When I saw the title, I thought it was a metaphor. Then to see you are literally animating a gear made me laugh. What? I didn't intend on playing words. Continuing some spinning gears in Timbren. What else could that possibly mean? Metaphor for what? How much does Toon cost? Depends on the version that you want. You can get it outright or get a subscription model. So in its absolute cheapest form, you can get Harmony Essentials for I think like $15 a month. It might have gone up recently though. I've been hearing that from some people. But it varies a lot. If you want to get like the highest end edition, it's like it's well over 1,000. I think it's one of the main reasons people still stick with Flash is that you're paying a similar amount for the entire Adobe suite. Oh, whoops, I trimmed away the wrong edge of that circle, didn't I? I'm stupid. In fact, I didn't even need to do that. That line does not need to exist. There or there. There we go. Oh, I thought spinning gears ideas from my brain. Okay, cool. I see. That's a good idea, though. I think it would be good to have some brainstorming sessions together. Actually, there is one project that I really want to get everyone's thoughts on. That'll definitely be a big conversational one. Because I'm really not sure what to do with it, or what its fate will be. And I've often considered, will it be time to let the project go? But I feel like I need to do at least one small thing with it. And then I can let it go. But we'll see. I'll probably talk about that one next week. So I guess get excited for that. What is the mysterious project? Ooh. Okay, so I've merged the layers just now by selecting both layers, right-clicking, going merge layers. And now I can see I can interact with them with the paint bucket and make this little shady bit more shaded. Hooray, hurrah. Okay, what? Okay, so this bit's gonna be interesting because now I can start interacting with light, sort of. Like I'm gonna make everything that's facing from the top bright. Okay, so it's just this. And I'll do the top half ones darker, so it looks like it's interacting with a light source of some kind. Cool, huh? These top ones, though, they may need to have a gradient or slightly change over time. We'll see. I might get away with doing nothing. It's always nice when you can get away with doing nothing. Uh-oh. I missed one. Too expensive, yes. It is a bit of a shame, isn't it? Tell me though, if you don't mind sharing, what is your budget? How much would you be willing to spend on a software? to be fair, it is the industry standard program for 2D animation. Assuming you're talking about Toon there. Yeah, so they do tend to focus more on studios, corporate-y stuff. So you probably do owe it to yourself to learn Toon if that's the route you want to pursue. But it would be nice if it was a bit more accessible for the casual consumer. And you know, the smaller versions are there, so it's not like it's completely inaccessible. But nodes would be nice. Nodes are fun. What's a good budget PC that allows you to use animation programs like Flash, etc.? That's a good question. I don't have a PC, as you can probably tell by my diesel-powered Mac, because I should probably consider upgrading. But as a point of reference, this thing is about 8 years old now, because I got it at the end of 2009, and it is now 2018, and it's still going, and it's still running it. It's not running it well, but it is running it. For the sake of, like, the only thing that's really made me consider upgrading is things like streaming. There's a lot of stuff that I simply cannot do live, which sucks. Because I really want to run this machine in the ground. Because I don't know what kind of thing I would want next. I'm quite tempted by the Wacom Studio Pro. Does anybody have a Wacom Studio Pro? They're neat. I want to muck around with one of those more. But they're really expensive, and I don't think I can justify it. Like, I would justify it if it became my core machine, if I was just using that. But I don't think I can justify that being a thing. No, how do I phrase it? It's if I wanted to have a fully portable workstation. So if I was moving around a lot more, which at the moment I'm not. But maybe I will. But maybe I won't. I don't know. Like, life is too unpredictable. So I'm constantly tossing up on whether or not I should have a beefy tablet that is also a computer, or a big PC. I want to go back to having a PC soon, I think, so I'm not completely enslaved to the Apple economy, which I currently do feel very enslaved. Like, I just have no choice but to put up with a bunch of crap. And I don't think things have really changed a whole lot. Like, if I was to upgrade to the same version of this computer, which is an iMac, like, they're the same, sort of. Like, I know the insides are probably very different, and to simply change because its outside aesthetic is different would be silly. But I guess I can't help but look at the thing and be like, it hasn't changed in 10 years. Actually, I think I get away with just having that be that color. No, I wouldn't, because that is... Oh, I know what I can do. Okay. You ready for another cool feature that some people may not know about? Having permanent gradients. This is quite neat. So I'll make a gradient like this. There's a solid and gradient button there. And I'm going to paste the gradient here like this. The gradient tool is under the white arrow at the bottom. If I select it, I get a gradient editor. There's a handle here. So I want to make it this ways. So now this panel is going to be light at the top, dark at the bottom. And I want it to be shared across all of these things in, I don't want to have to manipulate it anymore. I want it to just be shared automatically across it. So how do I do that? I'm going to select the piece with the gradient in it, and inside of tool properties, there's this button here, which has like a little gradient with a tick in it, right? I'll click that. It looks like nothing happens, but it's now stored it in memory, and I can now summon those gradient dimensions whenever I want. So with this swatch still selected, and with the paint bucket on, in tool properties, there's this button here. This one's a switch, and when you turn that on, it will now use that gradient positional data for everything. So you see that's now a smooth transition all the way across. So I can go through here and just hammer this out, and it's going to be a perfectly smooth thing all the way across, making my animation nice and loopable. See, as I'm painting there, the top one's turning bright, the dark one's staying dark. Oh yeah. How's that for efficiency? Gradient memory tool. Try it yourself. There you go. Oh, looks like I forgot one line. This line here. Am I an employee at Timbren? No. My Timbren video was so good. You mean this one in particular? Thank you. Doesn't feel very good. I use a Cintiq 13 HD. Oh, those ones are great. I love the resolution in them. I've got the 12WX, which is like the version before it, which I'm still very fond of it. It stood the test of time very well. Like its resolution, its distance from screen to plate is all very tolerable. Okay. Now I probably will have to do the gradient thing on the outer gear as well, because watch this. When it loops, this one here is going to suddenly go from being dark to being light. So that's going to have, I reckon the same gradient should work. I'll give it a try. If I go select this and go boop, 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 boop. Yeah, that works. Let's quickly hammer through all these. Like that. Starting to take form now, yeah? I'm going to show you one more trick after this. And then maybe a quick effect. And then we'll be done. Which is good, because we're pretty much coming on time anyway. So bear with me for the last effect. There we go. Alright, so now I can take this and loop it. Actually, there's a couple of tricks I want to show you. So I'm not sure if this is available in Essentials, it might not be. But these buttons here, these are for... they're mainly for traditional animators for marking keys and breakdowns and things like that. I like to use them for something slightly different a lot of the time, and that's for marking looping animation. So each one of these is given a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when I loop the animation several times, like this, it's very difficult to tell where the animation is starting over. But when you mark a keyframe, it marks that drawing instance, and every time that drawing appears, it's just going to apply to all of them. So if on frame 1, if I assign it as a keyframe, bam, it appears 3 times. So now I can see at a glance exactly where the loop is happening, and it makes it so much more manageable. So now I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to paste a cycle. I'll paste a cycle 3 times. So now this animation is going to be nice and long, and it should look as if the gear is just doing a full constant rotation. Perfectly smooth. Lovely. So now I just want to give it a bit of a shine. And I'll be able to do this across all of them relatively easily through a similar technique that I did before. So I'm going to create a new blank layer on top. Where's the music at? That's actually a very good question. I should put music into this. That's good feedback. Thank you. It saves a lot of time instead of jumping back and forth through colors. Yes, it does. Do I use a digital tablet to animate? Yes, I do. This is a Wacom Cintiq 22 HD. It's one of the higher end ones. But it's also very old. I would really like it if they made a new version of this particular type. You kind of have to... Sure. What? Alright, so now I'm going to do a couple of shines on the thing. You know, make it shiny. I'm going to use the stroke tool for this. I put it out at the beginning of the thing. So when you press K and stroke mode comes on, say down here, then it all turns blue, yeah. So I'm going to do that on a blank layer above. And inside the paint bucket near the bottom there is the stroke tool. This is essentially the pencil, but it has a thickness level of 0. And when you draw normally, you won't be able to see it, and it's going to be like, you've drawn a stroke and it's invisible. Watch out, because if I press K, there it is, sitting all invisibly. So straight through the gear, I'm going to do a few lines like this. I'm going to do 2 pairs, and one of them is going to have a third section. And I'm going to paint this in with shines and shades and junk like that. Or maybe I'll make both of them 3, so they can both have light and shadow. Okay, there we go. Is this going to work through the whole thing? I think so. Its exposure will be increased to exist through the whole loop, like that. I was making sure that everything's crossing over. Yes, they are. Good. And now I'm going to merge the layers like this. So now that stroke is now planted inside of it, and you can probably tell what I'm going to do next. Go back to the paint bucket. I'm going to select white. And on these frames with the paint bucket, I'm just going to go... there we go. On all these bits, paint in some light. So stick around. I'm going to do something with this light. Once I've paint bucket all these frames in, it will have some light, it will have some shade, and then I'm going to apply a glow to just the white bit. And that's quite an interesting technique as well, because I'll be using an effect called the color override. The color override's great because it allows you to select individual colors in the palette and isolate them down into their own element. It doesn't separate the drawings, it doesn't turn them into their own layer, it just takes them for anything. It just separates it. It's really cool. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Hold on to your seats. Things are about to get super exciting. There's nothing else on YouTube's quite like this. Oh yeah. Wait, is that the loop done? I thought it was. Okay. No, I've made a mistake here. I'm not going to undo it for the sake of the video, but I want to point out what I did by merging those 2 layers together. These drawings and these drawings are now different to each other. It's duplicated them. It didn't apply this effect to the drawings that exist over here because those layers didn't merge. You know what I mean? I mean, it did merge. Like, this one merged with nothing, whereas these ones merged with something. Yeah. So in a perfect world, I should go through and actually delete the drawing instances from the other one. But, you know, you're not going to be working with this actual working file, so I'm going to get away with it. If this was for something more proper, though, I would have undone all of those actions and just done it again. So I just need to put a bit of shade in, and I'm using a pretty dark color. It should probably even be black. Nah, it won't be black. I'll just make it the same dark as this one. Hopefully that won't clash. I don't think it'll clash. No, that's fine. So putting super highlights and super shady things next to each other like this, it tends to make things shiny. Just so you know. There's definitely better ways of making things look shiny, but I find this to be a nice... it's like a quick and dirty method that is somewhat effective. Does the 22-inch D have the radial menu? Yes, I think it's just standard across all Wacoms. It's just part of the software. Assuming you mean the software radial menu. I know some other Wacoms actually have a like a dial thing now, which is probably used to access it. And in that case, this one doesn't. It's just a bunch of vertical buttons, and there's some touch strips on the back of it that allow you to scroll through stuff. When will I make another read between the frames? They're very interesting and funny. I mentioned a bit earlier today that I really want to try doing a read between the frames live. So I'm going to try that late this week or early next week, just to see how it goes. And then you can tell me whether or not you think that's a terrible idea. Okay, there we go. So if I turn stroke mode off, those overhanging bits can continue to exist, but they're invisible. And there we go. That's kind of shiny. The more I look at it, the more things I'd like to add. It would be really cool to have a circular stroke go around this edge so that these bits could be lit up as well. Maybe or maybe not. I'll do that later. But the last thing I want to show today is just to give this a little bit of a shine. Or at least give these white bits a bit of a glow. Because I mentioned at the end of the other day I'd do it, so I think I'll do it. This is the Node Network. Hello, Node Network. May or may not have seen this before. This is something that it only exists in Harmony Premium. It's sort of the big thing that they add. It's another way of looking at your layers. You know, your layers are spread out. You can connect the wires together in all sorts of crazy ways. It's good fun. It's probably my favorite part of the program. The depth you can get to it is just insane. It's like After Effects, how much you can do with it. It's crazy. Doing read between the frames live sounds amazing. How could it go wrong? I can sense some sarcasm there. Okay, so this drawing layer here, this is the gear. This was my old reference material from a stencil that I did earlier, so I'm going to unhook that and just sort of put it away, floating in space up there. And here I'm going to get, from my library, I'm going to get a color override and a glow. So if I take this thread, put it through the color override, down here like that, bust open its layer properties, I can see all the colors in my palette. So if I select the white one, go to render selected colors only, render selected colors yes, and press this arrow and it pops over. You now see that the only thing showing up is the white. So if I put a glow in that thread as well, then I can use source color. Yes, I want to pump up its glow to maybe 5. Yeah, that'll probably be enough. What will intensity 2 look like? That's probably too much. 1 should be fine. But where's my gear gone? What do I do? Well, if I could just take a second thread of it that's not got anything, and then it just appears there. Look at that. Look how much more professional that looks already. Isn't that cool? Oh man, effects are great. There's so much you can do with them. Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm done. Gear's spinning. Look at him go. That wasn't so bad. Took probably about it looks like it took about 2 hours grand total to put that together. So I'm pretty satisfied with that, and I can do all sorts of things with it. And there's a whole bunch of different animation techniques that are involved in putting it together. So thanks for joining me. I'm trying to remember. Am I making this for JonTron? No, it's not pixely enough for that. But I guess now you know how something like that can be done. Anyway, you kind of have to use a digital tablet. Oh, okay. We're focusing. We're your live focus group. Yes, absolutely. Feedback from a live audience is the best. Anyway, so that is done. I'm trying to remember what tomorrow's stream was going to be. I think I was going to finish off one of the things I was streaming about in TV Paint the other day. Yes. Here it is. I'm not sure if anybody who's here now is here for this, but I was experimenting with how to build brushes and things. So I think I'd like to continue that research. It's sort of me experimenting and just sort of mucking around with it live. And, you know, people are throwing in suggestions on what to do as well. I know looking at a brown brick wall probably isn't the most exciting of things, but you know, doing research and experimentation with everybody here has been good. It's the only real time of day that I get to do this kind of thing, and having people around is great discipline to keep it up. So come back tomorrow for some more of that, building some brush stuff, Who knows what other features and techniques will happen to exist in here that none of us know is a thing. I hope you got something out of this. It is going to be plausible to follow it step by step if you're willing to sit through all the junk, but I will edit it together and make a more step-by-step tutorial out of the spinning gear, which should be up in probably a week or two. Yeah, so sit tight. Thanks everyone. I will hopefully see you tomorrow. Take care.